British debate this hour. I'm asking, do you think that Brexit is to blame for inflation? Now, the former governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, has blamed Brexit for the high levels of inflation. He claimed that he previously warned the British public about how voting to leave the EU would damage the economy. Of course, he did apparently vote to remain by the sounds of it. He dubbed the architect of Project Fear. Carney was dubbed the architect of Project Fear. He also predicted a weaker pound, higher prices and slower growth as a result of Brexit. However, critics would argue that actually the reason why that's happened is because, well, of course, we've had Brexit, but there were loads of other things like, of course, COVID and the pandemic and, of course, the war in Ukraine and all the things that have come along as a result. Well, now I'm joined by Vicky Price. She's the Chief Executive Advisor for the Centre of Economics and Business Research. Suzanne Evans, political commentator. Also Sean Woodward, former Labour MP. And Shanker Singham, CEO of Competeri and former trade advisor to the UK Secretary of State for International Trade. All right, well, listen, I'm going to start with you, Shanker. She's talked about... He's basically saying that the reason why we're having all this high inflation is because of Brexit. Is there some credence to what he's saying?
Well, I think there are lots and lots of reasons why we have high inflation, and you've got to separate out the high inflation that's occurring in all of the world. And it seems like the after effects of the COVID lockdowns and the disruption to global supply chains and a lot of those things that gave rise to very high levels of inflation and cost increases are proving to be quite stubborn. And taking quite a long time for the world to recover from that. But you have to also look at the things where some of the things that people experience as a result of inflation, in other words, a higher cost for certain things, why that's happening, what are the differences between the UK and the rest of the world? Because certainly with things like food prices, it seems like UK food price inflation is significant, and I think clearly I think Brexit's not a major contributor to that, because in terms of food, we're obviously a net importer. We have no tariffs and quotas to the EU, and we haven't even introduced any controls yet, so there can't be a huge impact there. But I think the single thing that is the biggest contributor to UK-specific inflation is our very, very high energy cost. And so, we need to think about how to lower our energy cost. It's a combination of things. It's environmental taxes and so forth, but it's also our interconnection policy. It's a whole range of things that lead to very high energy costs, and they are dramatically out of line with the European Union, and they're dramatically out of line with the US and most countries.
Well, let's go to... I want to